Good morning, P10 Ice Daily Show. Happy Friday morning. I hope your morning is off to a great start. Merry Christmas Eve if you are a Christmas celebrator. Otherwise, hope you're having a good day, hopefully off of work. We are here on Fitness Athlete Friday. My name is Alan. I'm happy to be your host today. Currently have the pleasure of serving and a faculty member in our Fitness Athlete division. Here on Fitness Athlete Friday, we talk about the CrossFit athlete, the Olympic weightlifter, the power lifter, the endurance athlete, the runner, the cyclist, triathlete, Ironman, marathoner, all those kind of endurance athlete folks as well. Some announcements really quick. Don't forget about the CrossFit Health Conference coming up in January. Use code ICE10 for $10 off that. That is 2 days, 16 hours of con ed directed at the healthcare provider. So lots of stuff about nutrition, musculoskeletal rehab, kind of all the stuff that's up our alley. So that is much more focused on the healthcare provider than it ever has been before. It is a Friday and Saturday, but everything will be recorded if you can't watch on Friday, if you're going to be in the clinic or otherwise not able to get on the computer Friday. So all that is available for the low price of $59. So we hope to see you there, or otherwise we hope you check it out. It's going to be a great 2-day conference. Courses coming your way. Our next courses that you can jump into start after the new year. Modern Management of the Older Adult, Essential Foundations. That's 8 weeks online. That starts January 5th. And then Modern Management of the Older Adult, the live seminar will be here at CrossFit Fenton and Health HQ. That will be the weekend of January 8th and 9th. So hope we can see you here at our home base for that course. In the Fitness Athlete division, you can join us live in January. Zach Long, aka the Barbell Physio, will be in Las Vegas, Nevada on January 29th and 30th. And in the weekend of February 19th and 20th, you can join Mitch down in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then our next online course is Clinical Management Fitness Athlete Advanced Concepts. If you have taken Essential Foundations already, you can jump into that course. Much more dialed into programming, Olympic weightlifting, advanced gymnastics, muscle-ups, handstand push-ups, pistol squats, all that sort of stuff if you are in the gym working with a fitness athlete to help you better serve that population. So those are the courses coming your way from the Fitness Athlete division. Today we're going to talk about carbohydrates and sugar, what they are, what the difference between the different types is, timing, when is timing optimal, and then get into what it looks like to tackle these, what can be some tough questions with patients and athletes that we have in the clinic. So the first thing, starting very basically, is we need to understand, are there different types of carbohydrates, and if so, what are they? And the answer is yes. If we have forgotten from maybe our basic nutrition class back in undergrad or high school, we mainly have 2 different types of carbohydrates. We have simple and complex carbohydrates. So it's important to understand the difference. Lots of folks are eating the wrong type, and it can lead to a lot of issues, not only with health, but specifically with the fitness athlete population with performance. So simple carbohydrates are those that digest very, very fast. They basically produce a big energy rush and then a crash afterwards. So we're very familiar with simple carbohydrates. This is what the majority of the human population puts in their mouth every day. This is a lot of processed and refined sugar. This comes from sugar cane or beets. So this is not really a naturally occurring type of sugar, but it is unfortunately almost everything we consume regarding carbohydrates and sugar. Why we don't like these? Because they have that energy crash issue, and they also don't have any vitamins or minerals or micronutrients, right? It's literally just sugar down the hatch. You get some energy, and then it runs out. It's like squirting lighter fluid on the campfire. Yes, the fire is really big for a while, but if there's not a lot of high-quality wood in there, the fire quickly dies out. So those are simple carbohydrates. We also have lactose from milk, and we have fructose from fruit. So these are a little bit different. They produce the same effect. They produce that sugar rush and then crash, but we like these a little bit better because they do have a lot of micronutrients. They do have vitamins and minerals, and specifically with some types of fruits, we do have a lot of high quality fiber, and we like fiber for a lot of different reasons: anti-inflammatory properties, digestive your nerves in it, it will slowly like a lot of simple carbohydrates, candy bars, cakes, that sort of stuff, especially dealing with patients who have a lot of pain, and specifically with those with radiculopathy. We're really trying to get people to avoid those. That is fire on the flame of those folks' symptoms. So we have a lot of conversations. We have the benefit here, owning our own practice and being able to practice how we want, that it is on a whiteboard in every room, all the information about sugar, what it does to your body, and why, especially if you're in rehab with us, we want you to try to stay away from it. So those are simple carbohydrates. Now, on the other end are complex carbohydrates. These digest slowly. They do not produce as much energy, but they do produce a steady, constant stream of energy. So we also have refined types of complex carbohydrates. We have probably commonly, a lot of us are used to rice, white rice, or flour-based stuff, breads, that sort of stuff. Again, refined, we don't like it. It's mass-produced. It doesn't have any vitamins or minerals. And then the type that we like the most out of the complex group are the non-refined complex carbohydrates, and those are our whole grains and stuff like that. Now, people can have issues with that, gluten sensitivity or complete gluten intolerance, so we can have an issue with eating whole grains, but we like the steady energy release that we get from complex carbohydrates, although, again, performance-wise, maybe complex carbohydrates aren't the best. And we'll talk a little bit about when to use which type of carb related to performance in a little bit. Probably the most important thing that we need to understand about carbohydrates is they are not necessary for life. We can make glucose from our liver and kidneys from other chemicals in our body. So we do not need to always be eating carbs. After about 8 hours without an input of carbohydrate to our body, the process, gluconeogenesis, starts in the liver and part of the kidneys, and we'll start to produce our own glucose as long as we have all the other molecules in place. So it's important to know we don't always have to be eating carbs. This is kind of the basis for keto diets and more paleo-based diets of carbohydrates are nice. They are a quick boost of energy, but they're not necessary. And that's, I think, an important conversation for a lot of patients who may have not a lot of literacy education-wise around nutrition, where they may have learned throughout their life that every meal should have a starch, a carbohydrate and a meat, and that's simply not the case. And I think that's really important when we start to work with people who have diabetic issues, insulin sensitivity issues. Not that we are prescribing them a specific type of diet, but helping them understand it's not necessary to eat these, especially to be eating them all day long. So it's important to know that we can make our own glucose when we need to. Now let's talk about timing. When should we be eating carbs? It's important to note that carb loading is pretty much unnecessary for anybody not doing a very long bout of exercise. Unless you're going to go run like a half marathon or a marathon, you're going to be exercising for multiple hours. The idea of carb loading the night before or the morning of has really been kind of shot down in the literature. It doesn't provide a big performance boost. If anything, it might provide a performance decrease because it's probably going to result in a little bit of short-term weight gain, really piling on stuff like pizza or pasta or rice. We also have to respect that it takes time to digest food. So if I'm getting ready to work out in 30 minutes, eating a bunch of carbs for energy is not going to happen. It's just simply not going to process and be released in time. So timing-wise, if we are going to do a very long exercise bout, maybe we do want to front load some carbs, but we need to give it a couple hours to digest. Eating something in the car and then walking into the gym to crush a workout, you're not going to get the result that you want. Now, what about after exercise? What should we do carbohydrate-wise? What I tell a lot of my athletes, it's really going to depend on what your schedule looks like after you leave the gym and you're done working out. Yes, we need to restore the muscle glycogen we've burned during exercise, but how quickly do we need to restore it? Are you going to be exercising again later in the day? Then we need to think about eating a lot of carbs after we work out. Are you going to go to a job where you're very physically active? Again, then we might look at adding some more carbohydrates to a meal that you eat after you exercise. Now, if you go to the gym at 5 or 6 at night after work and the only thing you have left to do is go home and eat dinner and take a shower and go to bed, then you don't necessarily need to eat a lot of carbohydrates with that evening meal because you'll have plenty of time overnight, again, for that process to go, your body to go through to make more carbs. So you don't necessarily need to feel like you need to get home at 7 or 8 at night for a bunch of carbs, your body will make more glucose for itself overnight and be replenished by the time that you wake up, as long as you're giving it about 8 hours, including sleep, to go through that process. What's important with eating a lot of carbs in a meal is understanding that with carbohydrate consumption comes serotonin release. Serotonin makes us very sleepy. It makes us content. We all know that feeling of maybe going to lunch and eating some pizza or a burrito or something and getting back to work, or otherwise having a very sluggish afternoon and thinking, why am I so tired? All I did was eat lunch. Well, if you ate a lot of carbohydrates, you also released a lot of serotonin. You made yourself chemically sleepy content as your body is breaking down all those carbs and making more muscle glycogen out of it. So keep that in mind. I personally eat a lighter breakfast, work out usually mid-morning, have protein bar, and I generally avoid carbs until later in the afternoon. I try not to eat a lot of carbs. I mainly get carbs from vegetables in the middle of the day to avoid that serotonin dump that tends to make me tired in the afternoon, especially since I have given up caffeine over the past 6 months or so. I'm trying to avoid that afternoon crash, and I generally don't have to do anything physically exertional in the later afternoon into the evening. I have stuff to do, but it's generally on the computer, so I don't need to hammer a lot of carbohydrates, and I tend to have more carbohydrates with my last meal of the day. So that's just personally how I time my intake and how I try to help athletes and patients better time their consumption as well. So if you're exercising early in the day and you have a physically demanding job, or you're going to be physically active again later in the day, then definitely eat some carbs with that post-exercise meal, because you need to restore that glycogen faster than your body can naturally restore it. But if you're done for the day, consider getting your carbs from vegetables or plants. You'll get those nice micronutrients, you'll get that fiber, and then your body will make more glucose for you overnight. And we know avoiding carbs, especially refined sugar, has a lot of longevity and inflammation benefits, especially for those people who are in a lot of pain. So consider those recommendations for your patients. Now you're about to walk into my TED Talk. I apologize, I ambushed you. I think it's worth talking about this. Recently went on my honeymoon to Hawaii and got to visit an old sugarcane plantation, and kind of learned a lot about the sugar industry that was a little bit eye-opening. That we've basically switched sugar production in this country from slave plantations in the 1800s. That stuff has kind of been moved to third world countries, and by eating a lot of refined sugar, candies, cakes, donuts, that sort of stuff that comes from sugarcane or beets, we're basically still supporting a slave industry just in other countries. That a lot of folks are indentured servitude, indentured servants that work on these sugarcane plantations and these beet plantations in other countries. So we've just moved it overseas and made it another country's problem. But nonetheless, we're still supporting the same industry. They are not treated well. They work all day long. They usually have their passports or visas taken away when they get to these plantations, and they basically just work all day long and send whatever money they make back to their family. It's also a very inefficient crop to grow. Sugarcane and beets do not naturally grow all over the planet. They only grow in very specific climates. They really mess up the soil and the environment, especially when we only grow sugarcane over and over again and we don't crop rotate. And from a water perspective, sugar is the most inefficient crop on the planet to grow. It takes 9 gallons of water to produce 1 teaspoon of sugar. So think about a 12-ounce can of soda, or if you're from the Midwest, we call it pop. That takes 90 gallons of water to produce. It's 5 gallons of water for the average American to take a shower. So drinking 1 12-ounce can of Coke is the same as taking 18 showers. Eating 1 donut is the same as a whole week of showers. So it's a very inefficient crop to grow. It's one of the leading carbon producers on the planet, even more so than the meat industry. Then when we look at pounds of carbon dioxide produced, sugar is almost 4 times more inefficient than the entire beef industry. So I say all that to say this: we spend a lot of our time trying to get patients better and better understand all the science and stuff, and it kind of seems like it's not going to be worth it if the planet isn't here in 100 years for us to talk about this stuff anymore, because we eat so much sugar. The average American eats 150 pounds of refined sugar a year, which is just an incredible amount of carbon production. It's really mind-boggling. So keep that in mind. That's often something on my mind when we go out to dinner and there's dessert, and I think, I'm not necessarily thinking, do I need that anymore from a nutrition perspective? I'm thinking, that's a lot of pollution in that slice of cake. And not to say you should never have that stuff, but just think about that the next time you go out to dinner and you're thinking about getting dessert that has a bunch of refined sugar in it, let alone from the health benefits. So, soapbox over, what does this look like clinically in the clinic with patients and athletes who are coming to our door? It's really going to depend on that patient presentation. Are they here with active symptoms? Are they here for performance? What are they in the clinic for? What are we working with them for? Do we think sugar is a factor in their symptoms or their performance? If so, ask that person to track their food for a week. Again, we do this a lot with folks just to find out if they're eating enough protein, but have them track how many carbs you're eating, and then specifically how many of those are actually from refined sugar. What is that ratio of carbohydrates to refined sugar? Maybe are we eating too much, and that could be a cause of our symptoms or why our symptoms are not getting better? Or is it the opposite? Is that person reporting being really sluggish in the gym, not setting any new PRs, feeling really, really plateaued? That could be a person who's not eating enough, right? That could be a person who's only getting carbs from vegetables or plants and is not getting that glucose, that glycogen that they need for higher intensity performance, right? When we are in CrossFit, we're often performing workouts in the 8 to 20 minute time domain, and it's usually moderate to high intensity, 70 to 95% of our heart rate max. If we remember back to exercise physiology in undergrad, when we're in that heart rate zone, we are mainly burning glucose, right? We are not really burning a lot of body fat, and so we need that glucose in our system to perform. So from a performance perspective, there are going to be some folks who need to be told to eat more carbs and maybe even eat more refined carbs, especially those higher level athletes who are coming to us who are training maybe 2 or 3 times a day. Maybe they're doing some morning aerobics, some afternoon weightlifting and a CrossFit workout, and then maybe some afternoon or evening accessory work. Somebody who's working out 2 or 3 times a day, that is a person that can probably get away with eating some refined sugar, like some Snickers and stuff, right? Matt Frazier, CrossFit Games athlete, fittest man on earth multiple times in a row, was very famous for, in between events at the CrossFit Games, eating Snickers bars, right? And people would think, wow, that's got to make you feel like crap and not perform, but his performance would say otherwise, and the science would say to really quickly restore that muscle glycogen to be able to exercise at high intensity an hour apart from another workout, then we need to quickly get that sugar in our system, and that might be a case to be able to eat some of that type of food. But again, there are going to be those patients and athletes who need to be told to eat more carbs because their performance is so lacking. And then just in general, have that conversation, understand this balance between eating carbs and sugar for performance, but also that it can have a significant impact on our symptoms. We know it's a neurotoxin. We know it literally, especially refined sugar from sugarcane and beets, kills nerves. So that person with that screaming arm pain, that person with that lumbar radiculopathy, that is a candidate to have a conversation about how much sugar are we eating. I think every time I think about this topic, I think of a patient I had a few years ago who, when she got stressed, would go to the store and buy and eat an entire apple pie and could not figure out why in therapy we could get her range of motion all the way back, we could get rid of her screaming arm pain, but then she would come back in a few days later with screaming arm pain and she could barely lift her arm up, and she could not put her finger on the problem, but for me it was very obvious that it was the entire apple pie she ate every couple days to let out her stress. So it's important to be comfortable having these conversations with patients of, you are putting gas on the fire that is your symptoms. Exercised and made more nutrition choices the night before, the day before, know what it feels like to come in the gym and try and work out with that food in your stomach that you ate the day before. You know you feel stiff, inflamed, sluggish. You know you're kind of regretting your nutritional choices, and that is something that some of our patients are just stuck in a cycle with day after day. So be comfortable having that conversation, showing them how to track their food, being open to the idea that it's impossible to avoid this stuff every single day forever, but avoid it as much as we can from a longevity perspective, a symptom perspective, and overall well-being perspective, but also that there are some candidates that need to be told to eat more and recognize the difference between those two types of presentations. So I hope that helps. I'm happy to hear discussion on this, conversation. I love to talk about diet and nutrition. It's something that's my jam, so I hope this was helpful. I hope you all have a fantastic Christmas Eve and Christmas if you're celebrating Christmas. Have a great weekend. Hope you get to enjoy time with friends and family, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.